Morning. Morning, Jim. Morning, Rico. Carter, Dominic, Gian, how are you guys? Good morning. Takeshi, how are you? Choo Choo Pasquat, how are you? Maladay, Malday, Malday. Like that name. It's always Malday. Loner, how are you? Yeah, quality sleep. Got some real quality sleep last night. Went to sleep early. That's the ticket. Come on, buddy. Lay down. Good boy. Lay down. Yeah, you know what's funny? His tweet. I mean, he couldn't have top ticked his stock any better. It was running up nicely. It looks like Tesla's going to give us a higher low setup, and then he destroys his own. He says something stupid, and I don't want to say it was stupid. He said what was on his mind. Is what he said. Elon said what was on his mind, and he's doing this work, or he was doing this work for Doge, to cut the spending and, as he called it, the waste, fraud, and abuse. And hmm. Google's not looking too hot below the 200. I'll tell you that. Neb, how are you, man? What's up? How are you? VST not affected any by CEG's action yesterday. Notable. SMH also breaking out. Oops, SMH. Yeah, SMH looks really good. Yeah, could definitely be a tailwind. A-Lab came down the other day and found support on the rising 20. It's acting pretty decent. I just don't see some flat pivot that I can get myself involved with. So, like, I'm looking for, some kind of a level, whether it be off of a rising simple moving average or, some kind of a horizontal pivot are typically my favorite. And I don't really see one that I love. So, yeah, it's been hard to get traction. Yeah, I bought coin yesterday, got some traction right away. And then, I did get stopped out of my SMR, which is super effing annoying, only to see it dump effectively right away. I had like a 35s average, and they literally ramp it right up and then just dump it. So that sucked because I had like 20,000 shares there. So, it owes me money. But I did do a nice job of covering some literally right in this level on Monday. So, really no harm. It just obviously sucked to see them do this and then just dump it again. But CEG played a factor in that, and there's really nothing I can do. But I did cover half my shares, and then the only other short I have right now is Rigetti and then GRR for the last few months. But GRR at this point has done absolutely nothing. So really can't gain any traction on the short side, and not getting tons of traction on new positions on the long side, with the exception of coin yesterday. And if Bitcoin begins to act a little weak, then maybe my coin starts to suffer a bit. Opening range break entry on Rigetti for my short. Or are you talking about for a long? Not sure which side of the market you're talking about. Oh, so for my short, yeah, I was just I took a little bit into this. I can tell you exactly how I got involved into it. I've got my prints here. Hold on. Give me a second. All right, so I have a 1418, and I got it on 528. So right here. So I had to have played this. What was my thinking? I could actually look at my time and everything. Hold on. Give me a second. Okay, so So the way I got involved in this thing, this would have been at, what time is this? 48. So I saw this little move effectively write a reject of high day. And I was just playing this rejection of high day, late day. And I have a 14.18. So I was a little late to the party on this candle right here. And I was just looking for it to not establish over prior day high. And then obviously, we had a little bit of a move higher overnight and then just a total failure in the morning. But I had a stop all the way to highs. So, $1.20 risk. And that was it. And then it just faded off from there. So fairly simple setup. It was more about proper position sizing than anything. And then I got covers off at 12:20 on the 30th. So on this dump day at 12:20 as it started to turn back up. So into the close. That was it. Nothing more complicated than that, really. Could have had a little bit better covers into the washout, but, it is what it is. Left a couple shekels on the table. You hit pony yesterday? Yeah, I saw that weakness. It was just flagging out for the longest time and built this range here. So below the range, you can definitely see why you did that. Big, nasty down day yesterday, man. Oh, man. So you're asking what are the most underrated mistakes I see myself doing? Great question. You said, what are the most underrated mistakes I see non-newbie traders do in this type of market? Overtrade. Like kind of recognizing that, you're not really getting tons of traction on the long side and then continuing to hammer in positions. So a part of the reason is because so many names are extended. Some of the very best names are extended. And I don't really know what's going to happen, for instance, with like a CrowdStrike and if that's going to affect, a name like Zscaler, which it's clearly not right now, or a name like Rubrik at the open, which it's not right now, or PanW, which again, it's not right now. So, seeing these other ones not really affected kind of makes me think that eventually CrowdStrike gets bought up. But, it's still above the 20. But yeah, just taking it really one day at a time. I know a lot of people, you're seeing the market rip and maybe you haven't gotten, all of your money to work for you over the last 6 weeks. Like I haven't been able to do that. And, what I'll see people do is they'll just start taking subpar setups or extended setups, and then they'll ruin the good progress that they did have for the last 6 months, right? So that's not what I want to do. I want to make sure that I'm keeping the money that I've made and continue to use progressive exposure. If the market can't pull me in with follow through, like for instance, I tried HIMS a few days ago, like $52. So like seeing it rip yesterday and then obviously fail, I would have sold some into that rip. So I was a little bit frustrated because like, that I had like 16,000 shares on that one. So it's like that one would have been really nice to catch up 10, 12 point move. But, it's a little frustrating because you want to get your money involved. And same thing, I had Dash and then it stopped me out at low day and then it, closed higher. And then the next day it gaps up a little bit and keeps going. Or yesterday's almost at an all-time high. So it's a little frustrating. But the market has to give you follow through from your entry. And if you're not getting follow through from your entry, then you can't really hold it overnight, and you have to respect your stop. So yeah, it's a little bit frustrating, man. One of the things that I'm seeing most people do is they're seeing the market kind of grind higher, dips, get bought right back up, and can be a little frustrating. So, which I get, but instead of getting too frustrated, you got to just slow yourself down. What are your setups, right? Is the market giving you follow through? Are you sizing things right? Are you not chasing stocks? Like, there's still a lot of, nuance that you have to, and rules you got to follow and have in place for yourself, so you're not doing anything stupid. So that's all you can do. If you want to short something, but, have your stop level. If you want to long something, long it, but have your stop level. So, yet, like I said, yesterday I got stopped out of a long only to see it dump all day long. And then the only name I bought yesterday was Coin. So it's like you're giving back a little bit of open gains on one end, which is fine. It was still a nice trade. But then you're making money on the other. So, which is great too. And we'll see, at this morning I saw Coin gapping up a little bit and Bitcoin was down. It's kind of nice. Yeah, I trade over extensions on shorts. Yeah, I'm personally kind of hoping to see CoreWeave, go more today. We're gonna have a nice little gap up, basically 158, and then hopefully some continuation and something close to 180. I think looks pretty nice. I don't know if that's gonna happen, but yeah, I do like shorting over extensions. It's just they're not nearly as straightforward of trades. No, because there is tons of follow through, so they're just making it difficult to kind of hop on board. And I've got traction on my old longs, so that's what's really important. I've got traction on KGC, I've got traction on Netflix, I got traction on TNDX and Tesla. Toast not so much. Coin yesterday, so I am finding some traction, but again, they're not making it easy. And if you're buying names that are overextended, they're definitely not going to make it easy. Everybody wants to short CoreWeave, huh? Yeah, one more update, Hammer. One more update would make it, pretty dang A+ in my book. Hood. What do I think of Palantir? Palantir looks fine. The daily looks great. I don't really know what there is to think about Palantir. It looks awesome. Depends your entry, right? But, I once had this thing on this day, 423, and I shook myself out like a total idiot on 5.6. Super frustrating, but it is what it is. And Rocket Lab needs more time. Nothing special about this setup just yet. I like flat pivots. This doesn't have one. Could it be a higher low? I suppose it could be, right? You see how this is your low. Here's another low, another low, and potential another low. Well, this could be a higher low setup. So your entry would, in this scenario, be over prior day high. Right, so 28 bucks. That would be your entry. But don't know that I love this setup, to be honest with you. Yeah, and one of the things, Chuchu, that you want to make sure is that you're not giving back your gains that you made in the last 6 weeks. You want to make sure that you're not doing that. So, continue to use progressive exposure. If the market can't give you traction on one, then you might not be finding traction on too much else. So take it one setup at a time. Very important. Focus on stocks that act like leadership, coming out of a tight area, in good groups. Everything else takes care of itself. AVAV still extended. Saw this one. Wait, AVAV. We're not looking at the right name. Isn't it AVEA? I don't remember. Wasn't it AVA? I forget the name. AVAV. I'm about to say, this isn't such a nice looking setup. Might be looking at the wrong name. Any interest in RDW this morning? Isn't that like Redwire? Isn't that like some... No. Why would I have interest in this thing? This is an ugly looking setup, brother. Where is the setup? So some so-so news that still has us underneath May 28th high. So you're still underneath this pivot here. One. So whatever news this was, wasn't that great. This gap up's not on earnings. This chart got destroyed like 75%. So in a short time and recently. So there's probably still a gazillion bag holders in here. Stock went down 70%. It then has gone up 100%, and it had no real consolidation. Thoughts on TEM? Needs to tighten up, man. Too much volatility. Too much volatility on the way down and on the way up. Nice that it, is tightening, but, could be decent. I know some people will draw a little downtrend line here and get all excited about it, but does look like a little flag, but I don't know that it's good enough. Yeah, think about a low cheat setup as like almost like a flag, but in the middle of a base. Maybe 10 to 15 to 20% from all-time high. So like a low cheat setup might be something like Bros. So it's like you have your high here, and you're not buying like a high type flag because this isn't really a high type flag. High type flag would have looked something like AVGO right here, or LPLA right here. This is a high type flag. Right? You see how LPLA is like at the top of the base? So you have like your cup, your handle, and this is like a high tight flag. So there's your high type flag. Bros is kind of like a low cheat. So you get just this nice little horizontal pivot, and then, it's effectively in the middle of the base. Still has some ways to go before all-time high, about 20%, right? So low cheat. Like, you're kind of cheating yourself in to this setup right in the middle of the base. But looks pretty good to me. Over 73 good, below 73 not so good. App looks decent. I just don't have a setup on it, just Nick. I just don't have a spot on it yet. Yeah, KRMN looks pretty damn good. This is also like a high type flag here. Doesn't look too bad. Yeah, app looks fine. Oh man, you know what sucks? I got stopped on snow too, and I never got my ass back in, but it is what it is. Oh my goodness, 214 now. What the hell is going on here? Yeah, to 205. Another missed one, man. I've been in so many good names, whether it be Palantir or Snow, or stopping myself out for the stupidest reasons, man. AEVA, that's the one. Yeah, no, extended. I'm about to say this came across my scans. It's just extended. It's almost 100% away from the 50 simple moving average. I see everybody talking about AEVA up here, but so many few people talking about it right in here, when it had gone sideways for literally a month. But now all of a sudden, people love it up here for some reason when it's extended. I don't get it. No good. AVA, no good. Too extended. It could work, but here's the problem. I tell students this all the time in the room. If you go to buy AVA, right, Ciro and Choo-Choo, if you guys go to buy this thing and it works, you're going to have developed a bad habit thinking that setups like this work, right? They could work. But what happens is you've then ingrained into believing that stocks that are extended go on to work. And okay, fine. And then you'll take a second one, and then it won't work, and then a third one, and then it won't work, and the fourth one it'll work, and the sixth one will work. But over the course of 100 trades, a much longer sample size, you're not going to be happy, because over time, buying stocks that are extended doesn't work. Futu looks pretty good. Again, still inside of a base. But the real issue with Futu is the group kind of sucks, right? BABA, no power. PDD, no power. One of the things that you have to remember, James, is that half of a stock's price appreciation is directly correlated to the group it's in. If it's in a shitty group, it's not going to move all that well. Oh, you're awesome. I appreciate you. And awesome work, too. I know you and Francisco do a great job with the write-ups. So one of these days we'll have to get Francisco up here, too, and yourself. Yesterday I had Clement, and that was a ton of fun. So people don't just have to listen to me the entire time. And I'm happy to repeat myself. I know there's sometimes it's like things need to be repeated a few times to really, really sink in. But thank you for the kind words. And like I said, you and Francisco, one of these days, I'll have to get you guys up here just so we can chit chat and how you guys might be handling the market and, how you guys are trading the current environment, what you guys are seeing and thinking. Along with nuances like varying degrees of risk and range, how does net worth impact position sizing when your portfolio represents 25, 50, or 75% of your net worth. My portfolio actually represents even more than that. I don't outside of my house, which thank God, I own. Um, all my money is tied to the markets. But the thing is I use progressive exposure, so there's really no risk. And I haven't had like a 10% or 15% drawdown from highs in 2 years. So my drawdowns are incredibly small. It's even rare that I lose like 10 trades in a row. And even if I lost like 10 trades in a row, I might still only be losing, 2 or 2.5 or 3% of my portfolio, because most of my trades have, 0.1 to 0.4 to 0.5% risk at most. So, somewhere in the middle. I mean, I tend to trade things that are pretty tight. I keep my stops to low of day. I use progressive exposure. So unless I got caught in something like DeepSeek and I had like 100% of my exposure on, and like all of those stops that got caught in a nasty gap down, even then I might only lose, I don't know, 8 to 10% of my account or something like that, which wouldn't really ruin my life. So yeah, I don't really think about it too much, honestly. Just because I've gotten to the place where I understand what I understand and I know how to keep risk fairly low, right? I don't go from 0% to 100% invested in, 24 hours or 48. It takes me 2-3 weeks to get all of my money plus margin to work for me. So Red Roof, it's not even really something that I think about at all, to be completely honest with you. Never really crosses my mind. I know the market's risky, but if the market's risky and I see things starting to go down and I'm long, I start to get stopped out of longs and then I start going short. So, if I start to notice failed breakdowns or failed breakouts and continuation on breakdowns, then I'm shorting. If AVAV is extended, what does it need to do for me to consider taking the breakout trade? It needs to go sideways. It needs to decrease the distance between price and the 50 simple moving average. And the only way that it'll do that is through price or through time. So price either needs to pull back and build a new base, or it just needs to go sideways as the 50 simple moving average catches up. Morning, Steve-O. I would just like to see Hood go sideways, actually. Yeah, I would just like to see Hood go sideways. I don't want to see leaders reverse. I want to see leaders tighten up and go sideways without really giving too much price action back. Like, I don't want to see them giving back too much price. Whoops. Yeah, so I chose a coin because it was resting on the 20 simple moving average on Monday. And then I over MSTR because MSTR for me was kind of in no man's land, right? It was between the 20 and the 50. So I understand that one, has a nice little upsloping 200 and the other one just got above its 200. But, one had found support right on the rising 20, a super tight daily candle. It just gave me tight risk. That's not to say it's going to work, but tomato, they're both Bitcoin correlated. So if Bitcoin's going to come down, then they'll probably all just come down. What are my thoughts on BTSG? Let's take a peek. Yeah, this looks like a lot of these other setups out here. Needs to get going over all-time highs. Looks like, over 25 good, below 25 no good. Yeah, now looks pretty good, but again, unless you're trading with a big account, maybe a touch slow for you, but superb consolidation after a move up. Institutional quality name. Olo. Super thin. Not one I can trade, but looks like it's trying to come out of a bigger downtrend. Lyft, I prefer Uber. I mean, this thing, price action here looks like it's terrible, but who am I to judge? Don't really see anything just yet. See this high volume day? Let it get back up above the close. 1665. When it does that, you could trade it as a high volume close setup. And then KYVO. Nah, let it establish itself above the 200. I didn't have crowd. Yeah, I was stopped out before earnings. I stopped myself like a moron on this day right here at like 3:30 or 4:33, 5:21. Even this gap down, I'd still be, this would still be above where I stopped myself out. So this reversal day, I thought it was trying to break out and squatted, and I just got so annoyed because during this entire consolidation here, you've got names like Rubrik and Zscaler just absolutely flying. And I'm like, do I own a laggard? And I just got annoyed with it, and so I let it go. People keep asking me about QBTS. I don't know exactly what your question is on QBTS. It's just a QBTS followed by a question mark. But I don't think very highly of these names. I know it's going higher, but I'm short Rigetti, if that's what you're curious about. Looks like this thing's trying to build a big cup and handle. Let ASPI build the right-hand side of its chart and flatten price a little bit. And then when it clears all-time highs, this one could be, much more interesting. A cup, let it build the high handle. Jets looks good. The airline names are actually starting to pop up on my scanner quite a bit. I gave Boeing out on the watch list the other day, and it looks really damn good. Boeing looks really damn good. How do I approach the emotional side of trading, and how does your approach differ from others in regard to experiencing chop and drawdowns in equity curve? I don't really deal with emotions, man. I'm like super, super even keel. I just don't, I know what I know, and I know that over time I have edge, and I trade both sides of the market. So if I'm not seeing traction, it's because I'm either not seeing the market well. It has nothing to do with me chasing stocks or oversizing them or getting impatient. Sometimes impatience gets to me. But I'm normally seeing the market well, and I don't really take ugly drawdowns on my equity curve. So at least not anymore. And I talk about that all the time in the room. You have to protect what you've made. And everybody makes money in a good market. Everybody makes money in a good market. So, making sure that, if you're going to be long, you're focused on stocks in, good groups with earnings and sales, leading groups with good earnings and sales, and that's it. And if you're going to short, make sure you're using progressive exposure as well. My thoughts on bull. Have you ever gone to your backyard and your dog just left you a pile of diarrhea back there and it was kind of stuck to the grass and you really couldn't pick it up even with the pooper scooper? That's what I think about bull. Looks kind of like that. Just this real piece of shit that's just not going to come out of your grass real easily in your backyard. I think it doesn't matter how much money you have. You have to take every trade, think about it as in terms of percentage. Don't think about it in terms of, dollars. right? Everything you do in the market should be in terms of percentage, right? Like if you lost a trade, you lost 0.2%. If you made a really nice winning trade and it moved 50%, you made 4% on your portfolio, and getting all your money to work for you, and etc. So it's like everything's about percentages. You can't think about dollars, because percentages is actually how you end up scaling up. QBTS is not a setup right now. Yeah, QBTS is not a setup. Yeah, you double inside day. I don't know why. It feels like somebody's going to buy this name out, but I really do like the action here. Move up, move sideways, still in a stage 1 base, and even worse if you zoom out on the weekly. Just like a falling stage 1 base, like stage 1 base, fell lower, a lower stage 1 base. I mean, yes, the daily's starting to look a little bit better, but what do my position sizes look like? So typically I don't buy more than 15% of my portfolio into any one name. Like Tesla most recently at 293 was the biggest position I took. It was like 12%. But usually 10% of my portfolio on one stock. And if the stock is super volatile, like 8, 10, 12 ADR, I go something like even 5%, 6%, 7%. Right? Like coin was like almost an 8% position yesterday, a little bit less actually. So, and that's it. It's all I can really do. It's just make sure that I'm sizing them right. Mentally, I can't go 30, 40%. Sometimes I can if like the situation is like calling for it, but I'm kind of over those days mentally. I used to do that more. Like I did that once with like SMCI, where I had like more than 50% of my account on a short, when it was near highs. So not something that I can like mentally do. My thoughts on Shopify, the best Canadian company out there. Yeah, looks pretty good. It's got to get over 207.30s for me, at least. Ideally, even higher. 210.70 would be even better. Yeah, GWRE, I saw this one last night. Super nice earnings. I mean, all-time highs, too. This thing's going to be gapping up way up here. Instead of buying this gap up, I would play this as a high-volume close setup. So let it close on earnings and see what the volume looks like. There are definitely long setups. You're just maybe not finding them, but like LPLA could be as long. Offers super low risk if this thing begins to break out. For instance, I thought Flex was interesting. Gave this one out on the watch list the other day too. This one's super slow, but EXTR starting to shape up. There are definitely setups. Just got to hunt them down. How do you like A-Lab? I like semis. I just don't know that I see a setup just yet in A-Lab. Like I want a clean technical setup, and it's just not there, right? I don't see the high or low. I don't see the flat base. I don't see the cup and handle. I don't see the high type flag. I don't have an undercut and rally. Like, it's just not there. Jax, good morning, brother. No, I like TSM. I mean, a touch extended from the 50, but, this is another little high type flag. This is almost like a lagging version of AVGO, right? You get this nice little move up. You get a few weeks of sideways. If NVIDIA continues to act well and AVGO continues to act well, TSM and A-Lab and these others are going to start to go. Thoughts on HIMS and the reversal on the news? Just needs to go sideways. Tighten up. That's all it's got to do. Ferg and the potential HVC today. I mean, Nice that it got over the 200 like that. Yeah, it's interesting. Could be decent. Just moves kind of slow, 2.36% per day. Might be a little too slow unless you're trading with like a super big account. LITE, semi but thin. Let's take a peek. Yeah, a little bit. I mean, not super thin. I wouldn't use the word thin. Trades, $185 million a day. It's plenty thick. Might not be the best, but I see it gapping up this morning too. Let there be like a 5-minute opening range break. Yeah, well, why trade TSM if there's a leader? Well, great question, but I don't have an entry here in TSM. The entry for TSM was 236. Or sorry, the entry for ABGO was 236. See this little wick high right here? Taking out the little wick high. But yeah, it looks good. But you can't buy this anymore. So you need to go to the next thing that's tightest, right? And this is tight, so it offers you low risk. But again, or you could just wait. Thoughts on CoreWeave? Yeah, or thoughts on APLD, a CoreWeave name, CoreWeave related? Yeah, they're like this data center name. I mean, no real thoughts on it, honestly, other than if CoreWeave continues to squeeze, APLD could probably do the same. That would be my guess. I mean, every little dip in the market continues to get bought up. It's like we're really in this kind of wild environment with how strong things are. So excited to see how things play out from here. Guys, I got to get my butt ready for stream. Thank you guys all for being here. I will be back on in 23 hours, God willing. Please enjoy the rest of your day. Trade them safely. Let the market continue to pull you in. Continue to use progressive exposure. Don't get frustrated if you're not gaining traction. That's just trading. That's just life sometimes. So I will see you guys in 23 hours. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.